The president may have delivered on his inaugural promise to devote his second term in part to climate change. His nominee to head the EPA, Gina McCarthy, has championed climate change and clean air initiatives. In fact, she worked for then Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney back when he believed in climate change. Of course, not everyone is a fan. Republican Senator Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma says in a statement about her record, as head of the Air Office, McCarthy oversaw some of the EPA's most costly and controversial rules. Which is funny, because this is how he described her during the 2009 confirmation to head the EPA's Clean Air Division.
Let me do this. I want to make sure that it's real clear, because I hold you in a very high regard. I think we're very fortunate to have someone like you and willing to take on a very difficult task.
Joining us now is Bill Nye, the science guy, and Sabrina Schaeffer, the executive director of the Independent Women's Forum. Welcome to both of you. Bill, if I can start with you. From everything you've so far heard about Gina McCarthy, does her record make you think that the president is indeed serious in his second term to focus on the issue of climate change?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, she was in charge of air and radiation. I remind everybody that no matter what your point of view, everybody on Earth breathes the same atmosphere. So you can have a libertarian point of view or a modern conservative point of view, but you can't get around the idea that everybody breathes the same air. And so the question will be, there are regulations in place going back to 2007 about restricting the pollution or the particulates, the particulates and also the carbon dioxide from coal-fired power plants that are being built now. The question will be, can Ms. McCarthy change things so that even the old plants will be required to go by these modern rules? And we'll see what happens. Of course, as a progressive, as a guy who spent a lot of time studying the environment, I did a science education show about the environment.
As a scientist.
This is climate change is very serious business, and the sooner we get started on it, the better. And when you want the United States, I was born here, I can't help it. I want the United States to be the world leader in this, rather than not.
Absolutely. Sabrina, your organization has spoken out against Ms. McCarthy, but isn't it the case that basically whoever is appointed will be carrying out the president's policies on this issue?
Yeah, and that's the bigger problem for us. Look, I think that Bill and I actually share some common ground, some common air. I'm the mom of 3 young children. I care about my environment, but I also care about the cost of milk. I care about our energy supply. I care about our economy and job production. And I want to make sure that if we're tackling climate change, which I do think a lot of people think is a serious issue, although I think we may have some differences of opinion on that. If we're tackling it, that we do it properly through the legislative branch and not through the bowels of the bureaucracy. And that's what I'm concerned, because McCarthy has already earned the title Obama's green quarterback, and it's for a reason, because he plans to use the EPA and McCarthy as a way of affecting change rather than going through the proper congressional channels.
Okay, Bill, so there you have it. Sabrina is concerned that this particular appointee and the president will issue changes that may undermine the economy and cause the price of her children's milk to go up.
Well, I've said this for many years. I just disagree with the idea that a clean environment leads to fewer jobs. I'm never going to see eye to eye with that, especially in what, if I may use the term, the medium term. As soon as you start making farms harder to grow crops, then you'll have fewer livestock, and you'll end up with milk being more expensive. Furthermore, just this morning, or I guess maybe it was the interview yesterday, Jeb Bush referred to the problem that the other side or the conservatives have right now with their anti-science policies. And I submit that the legislators hire people like the Environmental Protection Agency to provide the legislators the information about the environment.
I hope I'm not being lumped in with the anti-science. You're on with someone who is a deep believer in science and the scientific method and the use of experiments and randomization. I've studied science and the history of science, and so I just want to make sure I'm not being lumped in with those people. My concerns, though, are someone like McCarthy has already been working in conjunction with President Obama to so-called bankrupt the coal industry. This makes up 42% of our energy supply.
But Sabrina,
it's getting cleaner and easier to use and better, and we have to be careful that we're not you know, throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. We have to be practical in the kinds of energy policies that we're putting out there.
Bill, your response to that?
Well, coal is not in anybody's long-term interest, and this is not controversial. Our problem, Martin, Ms. Sabrina, our problem is there is no limit to fossil fuels. We will never run out of fossil fuels. So the sooner we stop using them to get most of our energy, the better off the world will be. Now, everybody kind of knows this, but the sooner we get started, the better. Now, coal plants, especially the old ones, are just not, they're not good for the air. They're not good for your children's future.
Well, one more concern that I should say is that we have with McCarthy is that it seems as though many of her regulations have been based on faulty science and insufficient findings and small sample sizes. And even the Inspector General at the EPA has called her out on this on numerous occasions. So I am a believer in science, but I want to make sure it's good science. And if we are going to be establishing thousands of regulations, and let's remember the regulatory agencies in 2011 issued over 3,800 regulations. This is not insignificant. So we want to make sure that it's being based on sound science.
Okay.
So let me ask this.
Very quickly, Bill.
Do you believe in climate change? Do you believe that coal plants are not a problem for the future of your children? Those two questions.
I believe that climate change is a new science, that we have a lot of research to still do, and that tackling it needs to be done correctly in a way that won't destroy our economy for the near term, medium term, or long term.
Thank you, Sabrina. You didn't answer the question. Bill Nye, the science guy, and Sabrina Schaeffer, thank you both. We'll be right back in a moment.
You think all auto